Hi, now I'm going to make the bagels. The very first thing you need to do is obviously wash your hands and get your clean tea towels and have a clean apron on. Now I have two towels. I have a tea towel for my hands, which was just clean, and I have another tea towel I have over there for dishes and just for that kind of thing. First of all, I need to have 3/4 cup of warm water from the tap. I've preheated my water so that it's ready. It is really nice and hot because yeast really love warmth to grow. You need a teaspoon of yeast. So I'm just using this packet yeast, and as I tip it into my teaspoon, you'll see that it's still some left. It's about half that packet. And I need a tablespoon of caster sugar. The caster sugar will feed the yeast. I'm just going to use a flat edge knife just to level it off. And I'm just going to stir that. And I'm going to let that sit aside for 10 minutes. So that gives the opportunity for the yeast to begin to ferment and bud and multiply. It'll froth and you'll start releasing carbon dioxide so that when you're making your bagels later, they'll rise and they'll be really nice and soft and fluffy. Okay, back soon. So my yeast has been fermenting for about 10 minutes. Now I'll tell you a little trick that I do. If it's a bit of a cooler day, I actually put some warm water in the sink and I let it ferment in the sink with some warm water. And if you have a close look, I'll bring this around, you'll see how light and fluffy that yeast is now. You can see that lots of carbon dioxide has been released and it's ready to use for my bread dough. Now I need 1.5 cups of flour. I'm sifting the flour, makes the dough nice and light and fluffy, removes any lumps. Sift that through. Okay, and then just using a butter knife, pour the yeast in all at once. Just scrape out any that might be in there, and then just using a butter knife, just stir that liquid into the dry ingredients. Now when you're making a bread dough, you want to develop the gluten. Now gluten is a protein that's found in flour, and when it's just naturally in flour, it's all wiggly shaped. Now when you're kneading it, with the combination of the moisture, it stretches out that gluten into more of a network. Now that network is important when you're making bread because when the yeast releases its carbon dioxide, that network of gluten traps that carbon dioxide in there, and that's what creates the little air pockets in the bread and makes that nice and light and fluffy. So I need to sprinkle a little bit of flour onto my bench. Just lightly spread that around. Scrape it out. And this has to be kneaded to develop that gluten network for about 5 minutes. So when you're kneading, fold it towards you, press it down, 1/4 turn, fold it towards you. If it's a little bit sticky, just get a little bit of flour and sprinkle it over the top. So fold it towards you, press it down, 1/4 turn, fold it towards you, press it down, and you do that and set your timer for 5 minutes. I'll come back after 5 minutes after I've done this. Okay, so my 5 minutes is up. My dough is really nice and smooth and beautiful, ready to prove. So I've cleaned out my bowl. Now, if you wanted to, you could spray it with a little bit of oil so it doesn't stick a bit later. Place it in, covered in Glad wrap, and I do the same thing. I put a little bit of warm water in the sink, just that much. Sit the bowl in, make sure no water gets into your dough, and let it sit there for about 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Now, if you're making the chicken filling, while that's proving, you need to make the chicken filling. So follow the recipe. If you're not sure how to do it, it's on the Tortilla and Gourmet chicken recipe demo. All right, so I'm going to cover this, let that prove for 20 minutes, and I'll be back to show you the next step. Okay, so this is looking amazing, except I should have probably sprayed the glad wrap because it's stuck on there. Okay, let's put that in. So I'm going to need a little bit of extra flour. It's a little bit sticky, but you can see how much that had risen, and that was in 20 minutes in a nice warm bath in the sink. So the bowl was in a warm bath, the dough. Just going to toss that in some flour and just knead it lightly, and that's just knocking out a bit of the air. Okay, so that's beautiful and light. Okay, so I am going to cut this into 4 and just put them aside. Have that little bit of extra flour handy. This is still a little bit sticky. And just put that aside. Okay, so just knead this lightly. And make it into a ball shape. Whenever you're kneading, I always finish, so if you do the technique of fold in half, press it down, quarter of a turn, when you flip it back that way, you have a really nice smooth surface. Okay, then to make the bagel, you just simply put your finger through the middle and stretch it out to a nice circle. So I'll show you that one more time. Just toss it in a bit of flour, lightly knead it. Using that same technique, fold it toward you, press it down, quarter of a turn, flip it over so you have a nice smooth side, thumb through, stretch it out like a donut or like a bagel. Now you'll notice on my left there's some water steaming away there. I've got that on the boil because the first cooking step when you're making bagels is you actually boil them before they go in the oven. So I'm going to make my 4 bagels, and then they need to rest for 5 minutes, and then we'll cook them in the boiling water. So if you haven't got boiling water ready, you need to get that on so that it can start getting nice and hot ready for the next stage. Okay, so these have proved again for another 5 minutes, and they're ready to be put into the boiling water. Now be really careful you don't burn yourself with this. I have a slotted spoon, and I'm just going to rest the bagel on there. And place it in, and it needs to cook for 1 minute on one side and then 1 minute on the other side. Hey Google, set timer for 1 minute.
1 minute, starting now.
So it needs to cook 1 minute, flip it, the other minute, and then back on the tray, and then you do the same for the other 2. Just do 2 at a time, all right? Okay, so these are ready to come out now. That's the second batch, and you can see how much they've risen. I'm flipping them over to the good side. Okay, so they look really puffy and just beautiful. The next step is to just brush them with some beaten egg. Okay, so that'll help give them a really nice golden colour when you bake them. And if you have sesame seeds, you can sprinkle them with sesame seeds. I don't have any. I have some poppy seeds, so I'll just do 1 to show you. Just slightly sprinkle. She might do a couple. And they go into the oven, so 16 to 18 minutes. I'm going to put them in for 15 minutes to check them. They should be a really nice golden brown colour when they're done. Okay, that's it. Okay, so I just got these out of the oven and they look quite amazing. Okay, so beautiful golden brown, really nice and light bagel, ready to eat. They're quite hot still. Put that over here. So to serve it up, you'd want it to cool down first, but just cut it in half put lettuce leaf on there, the chicken filling that you have made a bit earlier, and bon appetit, ready to eat. Some top tips. First of all, make sure the water is really warm when you're fermenting the yeast at the beginning. Not too hot because you'll kill the yeast, and not too cold, otherwise it won't bubble and ferment. Proving time, make sure you set your timers, make sure you're kneading for the right amount of times as well. Just be very, very particular about following the instructions on the recipe. If you have any questions, please just contact your teacher and they'll be able to guide you through anything you are worried about. Have a great day, good luck, have fun making the bagels, and I hope they taste fantastic. Right, see you.